Ashe, greetings. A grand rising, a grand day, a grand and a beautiful day to you once again. You all, my fellow natural, native, earthly humans. And welcome, yes, welcome. Welcome to part 14 of my series of talks titled Another Perspective, Analysis and Interpretation of the very famous prose poem called Desiderata by the late Max Ehrmann. Yes, you don't know that it is yours truly, I, the Mystic P, the Mystic Philosopher, along with, of course, my companion, my favorite, my old Bach's guitar. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear my recorded chirping bird sounds, here chirping and echoing the melodious, natural healing, natural comforting, therapeutic sounds in the background, in the foreground, and all around yours truly, I, the Mystic P. Now, just to remind you, or to let you know that if you haven't yet watched part 1 to part 13 of this, my series of talks, that I suggest that you please do so before you're watching this part 14. Or immediately after you watch part 14, that you go ahead and watch from part 1 to part 13 in that sequential order. And I'm sure you will understand. You'll get, I almost guarantee you'll get a lot more out of what the perspectives, the thoughts, the insights that I am sharing. You will understand, and overstand it much more than just this part 14. I'm sure you will get much more of it. Now, having explained these facts from my perspective about the words placid and placidly in stanza number 1, or from stanza number 1 of Desiderata in part 13 in the previous talk. Again, let me quote just to get you in line. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. Unquote. The subsequent and reasonable questions one might ask are these. The Mystic P, or the Mystic Philosopher, how is that realistic? How can one go quietly, serenely, calmly, gently, peacefully, and wisely amidst the noise and haste? Or how can one go quietly, serenely, calmly, gently, peacefully, and wisely in the middle of the noise and haste, in the middle of the violent and extremely vicious battlefield of life, and expect to survive? That's a reasonable question. Rational and reasonable question. Well, from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, it requires the application of the 6 P's, what I refer to as the 6 P's, or what is known as the 6 P's formula. P, 6 P's, which stands for the acronym for prior, proper planning, or if you prefer, prior, proper preparation, prevents poor performance, or will prevent poor performance. Meaning, before you go, you must prepare yourselves mentally, physically, intellectually, spiritually, educationally, morally, emotionally, etc. And the same principle applies to that of our children before we send them, or before we let them go out into the world, or before we allow them to go out into the world. We must prepare them mentally, physically, intellectually, spiritually, educationally, morally, emotionally, etc. We must prepare them before we let them go. And from my perspective, that is why, by our Mother Nature's law or laws, and just like all other animals, if you observe the animal kingdom, if you observe nature, we parents are naturally and morally obligated to our children to nurture, protect, and provide for them, to foster in them moral and ethical values, to foster in them virtues, strength, and naturally good character. Thus, the old saying, aka the Proverbs, or the old proverb, and I quote, train up a child in the way he or she should go, and when he or she is old, he or she would or will not depart from it. Or another translation of the same quote, direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it, unquote. Train them properly so that when they grow old, they will not depart from the moral and ethical values, the virtues and virtuous qualities that we, the parents, have passed on to them and instilled in them. If this is correct, or at the very least, if we can agree that this statement or this command is correct, then we will also, or we must also logically agree that if or when our children fail, then it is we, the parents, that failed them first. And it is us parent that failed as well. And from my perspective, that is also why, according to the system's own laws, we as parents are legally responsible for them and legally obligated to them from infant to the age of 18, and in some countries by the age of 21, infant to the age of 21. By that age, they are expected to have a very solid foundation, or at least they should have a very solid foundation in morality, in ethics, in good moral values and virtuous qualities, and at the very least have a high school education to make them more functional and have their own plan for their own life's success. Now, with all that said, someone might no doubt curiously and intelligently be asking the following questions. I anticipate questions like this. Mystic P, if all that you have just read and said about training a child and growing our children upright so that they will emulate us and be the model of success in citizenry, in ethics and morality, etc., that we as their parents expect them to be, and that they do not depart from the path of upfulness and righteousness that we had instilled in them, then how come so much or so many of our children turn out and are turning out so damn worthless? How come so many of them have turned out and are turning out to be such a disgrace to our family and to our society and to the world at large? How come so many have turned out and are turning out to be a disgrace, to be losers, to be so confused, to be such criminals, thieves, to be perverts and murderers, wicked? How come so many have failed and are failing to live up to what we have taught them, what we expect of them, to what we expect of them, and what we would like them to be in their becoming? And my answer to those questions is that from my perspective, though we may think or believe that we are the true and natural parents, the true and natural owners and governors, the true and natural mind shapers that are in control of our children or in control of our offspring, that are raising and growing our children in the way that they should go and the way that they should naturally become and in the way that we would like them to go and become and expect them to become. The evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that it is not so. If or when all things are considered, the evidence will show that those thinking are just, in reality, make believe. The evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that we are not the ones that are really and truly in charge or in control of their upbringing, of their training and their fostering. And though we may, and we do get and take all the blame, but the truth be told, we are not the ones that are truly in charge. If or when all things are considered, the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that it is the system, aka the government. Yes, the real and true mind controllers, the government mind controllers, the people farmers and the sheep herds, the oligarchs, the society, etc., that are the real and true influencers and the ultimate trainers of the minds of our children. And the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that we, the parent, were and are also victims of the said system. We're also victims as well, meaning they trained and educated us as well. They trained and educated us as well. So we are not the only ones that train and raise our children. We are not the only ones that are training and raising our children, or even more correctly, our offspring. And as my late mom would say, and I quote, "What gone by the morning can't come good at evening," meaning that something that started out bad in the beginning, or at its initial stages or stage, it is almost impossible, if not completely impossible, for it to turn out well, or for it to turn out right in the end. In other words, if the evidence shows that we, the parents, were screwed up at our early years, then how are we expected that our children are going to turn out perfect? But that is a subject and a topic all by itself for discussion, and I will have much more to say on that at another point. On that point at another time. So please stay tuned. Now, according to children's psychologists and other experts in the field of psychology and children's studies, and I quote, "The early years, especially the first 3 years of life, are very important for building the baby's brain. A child's brain develops rapidly during the first 5 years of life, especially the first 3 years. It is a time of rapid cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and motor development," unquote. So from this we may see that between the age of 3 and 5, a child is very impressionable, meaning they are most easily influenced by other people, by their environment, and especially us, their parents. And it is from then, the early years of a child's life, that we as parents must endeavor and should endeavor to instill in them the good moral values and virtuous qualities with which they must go and by which they must go into the world amidst the noise and haste. The moral values and virtuous qualities by which they must go and will go. And not only will they survive, overcome, find happiness and success amidst the noise and haste, but they will also help make this world a better place for all humanity to live and full joy. From my perspective, the moment we as parents missed out on instilling the right moral values into the mind of a child or of our children between the ages of 3 and 5 years old, or even 3 and 7, then there is a high probability that all hope is gone and that they will be lost forever. My mother used to say, bend the tree when it is young, for when it get old, it will be much too strong to bend. Now this will be the end of part 14 and for today. So please stay tuned to this channel, yes, the Mystic P acoustically, and join me again tomorrow for part 15, and that is if I am gifted with another day. That's why I take every day as if it is the last one and full joy, and one in which I continue to experience and full joy, good health, abundant life, freedom, safety, peace, and peace of mind, and good relationships with people like you, all my listeners and well-wishers. So please join me tomorrow when and where I will continue to share with you some more of my perspectives, my analysis, my insights and interpretation of stanza 1 of Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. In the meantime and between time, I ask that you please continue to think, continue to meditate, continue to contemplate on the word placidly, and lively up yourself, full joy, and be more. In your becoming, be more and much, much more. And definitely not be less. It is not my will that you be less, aka bless. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. I say.